How does a company lose $1 billion every 3 months and still become the most valuable startup on Earth? Well, the story of Netflix doesn't start with $1 billion loss. It starts with $40. That is exactly what Reed Hastings claims he owed Blockbuster for returning a copy of Apollo 13 6 weeks late. Now, we have been told this story for years as the altruistic origin of a giant, but it was actually born from something much more primal: pure, unadulterated annoyance with a broken system. In 1997, Blockbuster Video was the king of the world. They had 9,000 stores, millions of customers, and a business model built on the misery of their users. Late fees weren't just a nuisance. They accounted for 16% of Blockbuster's total revenue. Think about that. A multi-billion-dollar empire was literally standing on the foundation of people forgetting to return tapes on time. Hastings saw a paradox. People loved movies, but they hated the experience of renting them. He realized that if he could remove the friction, he could dismantle the crown. But to do it, he would have to bet on a technology most people hadn't even seen yet: the digital versatile disc, or DVD. In the late 90s, the tech world was obsessed with the internet. But the internet was slow. Downloading a movie back then would have taken days. Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph knew they couldn't stream movies yet, so they turned to the analog version of the cloud, the United States Postal Service. They tested the theory by mailing a DVD to Hastings' house in Santa Cruz. It arrived perfectly intact for the price of a first-class stamp. On April 14, 1998, Netflix launched with just 30 employees and 925 titles. Their hook? No late fees. Ever. You paid a monthly subscription and kept the movies as long as you wanted. It was a radical concept that felt like a gift to the consumer. But behind the scenes, the company was hemorrhaging cash. Mailing heavy discs across the country was expensive, and the DVD player was still a luxury item that only a few people owned. They were a tiny fish in a massive ocean, trying to convince a world addicted to VHS tapes that the future arrived in a red paper envelope. It was a high-stakes gamble that almost ended before it truly began. Year 2000. The dot-com bubble had just burst, and Netflix was in deep trouble. They were losing $50 million a year and were desperate for a lifeline. So, Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph flew to Dallas to meet with the king himself, John Antioco, the CEO of Blockbuster. They walked into the boardroom and offered to sell Netflix for $50 million. They proposed a partnership where Netflix would run Blockbuster's online brand and Blockbuster would promote Netflix in their stores. The response? Antioco and his team almost laughed him out of the room. To the Blockbuster executives, Netflix was a niche service for tech geeks. They didn't see the red envelopes as a threat. They saw them as a joke. At that moment, Blockbuster had 60 million subscribers and billions in cash. Why would they care about a tiny startup that didn't even have a single brick-and-mortar storefront? Hastings left that meeting with a bruised ego, but a clear mission. If Blockbuster wouldn't buy them, Netflix would have to destroy them. It was the ultimate point-of-no-return moment that would eventually cost Blockbuster billions of dollars in lost market value. By 2004, Blockbuster finally woke up. They realized the niche startup was actually eating their lunch. They launched Blockbuster Online and did something Netflix couldn't. They allowed customers to return their online rentals to physical stores for a free in-store movie. It was a brilliant move. It used their greatest strength, their physical footprint, against Netflix's greatest weakness. For the first time, Netflix was actually losing. Their stock price plummeted, and analysts predicted their demise. But Blockbuster had a structural problem. To compete with Netflix's no late fee model, they had to scrap their own late fees. This was an internal disaster. Scrapping late fees cost Blockbuster $200 million in immediate revenue. The company was at war with itself. The board of directors was furious, and the investors were panicked. While Netflix was a lean machine focused on one goal, Blockbuster was a bloated giant trying to protect a dying business model while simultaneously trying to build a new one. The friction was becoming visible, and the cracks in the blue and yellow empire were starting to widen. Many didn't know it yet, but the giant's knees were beginning to buckle. While Blockbuster was focused on physical stores, Netflix was building a secret weapon that would change the world of entertainment forever: the recommendation engine. In a physical store, you are limited by what is on the shelf. If the new Blockbuster is out of stock, you leave empty-handed. But Netflix didn't care about new releases. They used a complex algorithm called Cinematch to suggest older movies you might actually like. By 1999, they were already using data to predict your tastes. They turned the long tail of cinema into a gold mine. Most people don't realize that Netflix wasn't just a mailing service, it was a data company disguised as a movie company. They understood your habits better than you did. This created an addictive loop. Each time you rated a movie, the system got smarter. This tech allowed Netflix to keep customers happy even when the latest Hollywood hits weren't available. Blockbuster, on the other hand, was still relying on store managers and cardboard standees to tell you what to watch. The difference in efficiency was staggering. One was using the power of math, the other was using the luck of the shelf. This digital advantage was the silent killer that Blockbuster never saw coming until it was too late. 2007, the moment the traditional economy began to die. Netflix launched a new feature called Watch Now. At the time, it only had 1,000 titles and the quality was shaky. But the vision was clear. The cloud was finally fast enough to deliver cinema directly to the living room. Reed Hastings knew that DVDs were just a transition. He even named the company Netflix, not DVD by mail. The goal was always the net. This was the final nail in Blockbuster's coffin. While Blockbuster was still managing leases, electricity bills, and thousands of retail employees, Netflix was becoming a software company. Blockbuster's massive overhead became a noose around its neck. They had too much physicality in a world that was becoming digital. By the time Blockbuster tried to launch their own streaming service, they were drowning in debt. They had spent years fighting internal battles and paying off loans instead of innovating. Netflix was now playing a different game entirely. They weren't just competing with the store down the street, they were competing with boredom itself. The speed of a click surpassed the speed of a car ride to the store. The war was over. The world just hadn't seen the white flag yet. In September 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. They had over $900 million in debt and no way out. The giant that once laughed at a $50 million offer was now being sold off in pieces. By 2014, almost all of the thousands of stores were gone. Today, only one remains in Bend, Oregon, a living museum of a bygone era. But the real lesson isn't just about a better product, it's about adaptability. Blockbuster failed not because they didn't have the money, but because they couldn't let go of the past. They were so protective of their late fee revenue that they ignored the future. Netflix, meanwhile, was willing to kill its own DVD business to embrace streaming. They were willing to cannibalize themselves before someone else did. History shows us that being the biggest is never a permanent defense. In the tech world, you are either the disruptor or the disrupted. So, when was the last time you actually looked at the price of your subscription? You aren't just paying for a movie, you're paying for the legacy of a company that took a $40 late fee and turned it into an empire that conquered the world. I hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on the strategies and the relentless mindset behind these global icons. If you enjoy deconstructing business empires and tech legends in this Tech Archive style, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. That way, you will never miss a new blueprint of history. For those of you ready to explore more boardroom coups and technological breakthroughs, I have handpicked 2 videos for you right here on the screen. Click one to keep watching. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.